Hey everybody, this is Salamander Anagram with reaktortutorials.com. And before we begin, I'd just like to ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a bunch of great stuff on there and we really would appreciate it. Today I'm going to be working on creating a rotating speaker effect, which is exactly like what it sounds like. It's simulating the effect that having a pair of speakers pointing in opposite directions and rotating will have. So this is based on a piece of hardware known as the Leslie speaker, Leslie cabinet, or something of that nature. And it was designed by a man with the last name of Leslie, whose first name I forget, who had bought a Hammond organ way back in the day and was just disappointed with the sound that it had, so he created his own amp and speaker unit for it. So in order to recreate this sound, I'm going to be working off of a diagram I found in a book called DAFX. This is a really great resource for anybody who wants to get into DSP. It just has a lot of really useful diagrams and explanations of how to build different effects. And a lot of the information there is really easily translated into Reaktor. Alright, so the only thing we really need to worry about here is this z to the negative m plus fraction block that we have. We have two of them. All of the other stuff is simple multiplication and addition, and we're doing a little bit of math with a sine wave. So let's talk about what the z to the negative m module is and does. And the easiest way is to check out this core cell. There's a built-in core module called z to the negative 1, and what this does is it simply delays the incoming signal by a single sample. So when you have z to the negative m, it's just a delay line for m samples. And then with m plus the fractional value, what we're actually doing is creating a fractional delay line where we can delay by fractions of a sample. Fortunately, Reaktor has a module built in that will do this for us, and it's called the single delay. So we'll use a few of those to take the part of this z to the negative m. Okay, so let's look at the diagram again for a second, and I'm going to use two inputs for our macro. One is going to be the incoming sound signal, and the other one is going to be the sine wave that I mentioned earlier. So let's just create another input and name it sine, and we'll supply that with a actual signal in just a minute. Alright, so let's start by implementing these z to the negative m blocks, and they're going to have a delay line that's chosen by the sine wave, delay time that's chosen by the sine wave. So we're going to run audio input into the delay module, and let's just make this sure this is an audio signal here. And that way we can set the interpolation quality to high, although you probably don't need to, but I like to do that just in case. Alright, so our input is going to go to two delay lines, and one of them is going to use the sine wave as the delay time, and the other one is going to use negative sine wave as its time. See the bottom one here is negative sine, so we'll invert that value, like so. And I just want to point out here that, if you're making the delay time negative, then it's just going to spit out a delay time of 0 in reality, because you can't have a negative delay. That would be reading into the future time-wise. However, I'm just following the diagram. I feel like there might be a somewhat better way to do this, but I'm not sure exactly what that is. I haven't had a lot of time to play around with it yet, so maybe you all can experiment with that. Okay, so the output of the delays is going to get multiplied by 1 minus the sine wave and 1 plus the sine wave, respectively. And that's very simple to set up. So overall, how we're changing the length of the delay line over time, this can give us an effect somewhat similar to the Doppler effect, which I did a video on several months ago. It's basically the way that sounds will change in pitch depending on whether they're moving closer to you or moving further away from you. The most obvious example that almost everyone is familiar with is the way that the sound of an ambulance changes after it drives by you. The pitch drops. And that's because as the ambulance is getting farther away, the sound is actually taking longer to hit you, so it sounds like it's moving slightly slower. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is multiply both of these values that we've calculated so far by 0.7. And I'll just create that one time and then duplicate it for simplicity. And then these values can be added to the pre-multiplied values. So we'll add, you can see from the diagram here, this 0.7, or this value here, by the top value multiplied by 0.7. And we can duplicate that and switch it around like so. Alright, so this will give us two outputs, one for left output and one for the right output. Alright, so now we can provide our macro here with a sine wave generator. And for this sort of purpose, I like to use a sine oscillator made out of a ramp module and a sine module. And that way you can just select the frequency without converting to pitch or whatever. It's just a little simpler in my opinion. I'm just going to set that to something slow like 0.4, which means it'll rotate once every 2.5 seconds. And you can run that directly into the sine input. And since this is going to be a mono effect, we'll set the whole selection to mono, delete the voice combiners, and wire it up to our outputs. Alright, so let's just rename our macro to rotate, and then I'll show you a quick sound sample of what this sounds like versus what it sounds like dry. So here I've just reconnected the left input to the outputs. Okay, so as you can hear, that just kind of adds some character to the sound and a little bit of brightness, etc. Alright, hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. Please check out our website, reaktortutorials.com, for tons more and plenty of text-based tutorials as well. Alright, thanks for watching, you guys.